Hi everyone, trust you all are doing well and welcome back to another lesson. And in this one, what we're going to do is we're going to be working on our tag model and do the migrations and the methods inside and set up the relationships. But before we get into that, I did a little bit of digging around just to find out if we can maybe do things a little bit better. Now, what I've found was if you go to Laravel.io, they actually got a forum that we are more or less building, but we're not actually building the same thing. The reason why I'm showing you it is because it is designed by and maintained by Dries Vins. So let's just go to his GitHub by Dries right here. Now it's designed and maintained by him, and he works for Laravel. So what a better way if you want to learn how to actually do things a little bit different, or what you have already seen done and you want to know what is the best way of doing things. So I might not say this is completely the best way. It's just an interesting way of doing things. So like in his controller, he's making use of jobs to actually do the things, to do tasks. So if we go to the controllers app, HTTP controllers, let's just go to anyone. Let's go to the forum and the threads controller. Now, as you can see, he's making use of the spec now. So this is basically a job, but this is going to be deprecated, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So then actually just create a thread from the request. So if you go to that job right there, let's go to it. Let's go to the jobs. One. And if you go to the jobs, you will see that you can create a thread, create a reply. This is more or less the same thing if you go to your actions right here. If you do your installations, let's go to Visual Studio Code. So if you do your actions right here, you will see Fortify is got more or less the same things. Create a user and update the user, more or less on the same principle, but not making use of the jobs, obviously. Right, so they got just a different way of doing things. Now, what I want to do, the reason why I'm showing you that is as well is I like the setup of the models. So if we go to the app, the models, and go back. In our models, is making use of interfaces. So if you go to a reply model, it's actually got an interface for the relationship and the replyable type. So if we go here, so in the replyable, you'll see it's making use of an interface and it's subject, replies, and you can actually use this in your classes that needs it. All right. So obviously the subscription as well. Now what I want to do is I want to more or less do the same kind of setup, and to maybe if you guys want to learn a little bit something more, new techniques and stuff like that, I think this will be quite useful for us to do in our own project. And the other thing that I like as well is he's making use of trades quite a lot. Now what a trade is, as you can see, it has author, trade right there, HasTags. All right. So as you can see, a trade right there. Now, what a trade actually is, it's just a method for PHP object-oriented programming, and a trade is basically a set of methods that can be used in multiple classes. All right. Now, some of these we have already seen, even with the default installation of Laravel. As you can see, if you create a model right there, you're going to have a trade of HasFactory. All right, so we got a trade right there, and it can be used in multiple classes. So you can have a factory for user, category, or whatever the case might be, as you can see right there. So we're going to create our own trades as well, just to learn new things, actually the Laravel way of doing things. I kind of think this is kind of the way he designed the forum itself. the Laravel way of doing things. All right, so that's more or less what we're going to be implementing. So just a couple of methods, useful methods that I've seen on the website that I want to implement in our own forum right here. All right, so as you can see, it's got a free license. The license is a MIT license, so you guys can obviously, if you want to make use of the repository. I must say it's a little bit advanced, so if you're very new to, you might get lost in there. But yes, you can go and play around with it, make it work and stuff like that. Okay, so that's enough of that. So let's go into our model and let's create some of those methods. And yes, okay. All right, obviously we need to do our protected table. So we need to know our protected table, that will be our tags table. Okay, the next part that we're going to do is obviously the protected fillable. You can actually, if you don't want to do the protected filler, you can actually just put it to a protected guarded as an empty array. But I don't like that way of doing things. It's just preference, I guess. I don't appreciate doing things like that, because if someone is new and they're going to work on your project, you know, if you're going to be doing all of the work yourself, not a problem, because you kind of know how to set it up and all that kind of stuff. The problem might be if you have a new someone on your team, they might be able to just kind of bring in security issues to your website. All right, so the next thing that I want to do is I obviously want to create that relationship. So public function, and this one is going to be for the threads. All right, so obviously the threads can have tags. So this is going to be a morph to many. This one right here. And as you can see, it's imported at the top right there. And we're going to return this morph by many thread class. Now what I want to do now is I actually want to create that thread. This is wrong. Oh yes. The next one that we need is the taggable. All right, so obviously this is going, pardon me, this is going to be a polymorphic. This is going to be a polymorphic relationship. And yes, all right, so we got our taggables right there. So we got our relationship set up. Now the next part that I want to do is I actually want to create a trades. All right, so if we go to app, in our models, now app right there, I'm just going to create a new folder and call it trades. Now in their case, what they have done is they call it helpers. Now for me, it's not for me a good naming convention. Because there's other methods that I want to use as helpers, but I think it's just preference. In my case, I'm just going to call it a trades. All right. And in this one, I'm just going to create that one of HasTags.php. Okay. All right. Let me just rephrase that, because if I'm using trades and someone else is using helpers, it's all down to preference. There's not right that the helpers method is the right way or the trades method is the right way. For me, when I read it right here, for me, it's just when I see it, I kind of know what is in there. Just my personal preference. There's nothing wrong with naming it helpers. You can follow that convention. It's all up to you. All right. So because if someone is already have a PHP background and they're going to come to the folder and they're going to see trades, okay, they will more or less know what it is before even going into the folder. All right. So let's just do that. All right. So we're going to have our PHP tag right there. All right. And then we obviously need to namespace right here. Namespace, that's going to be app/traits. So someone might say that this is kind of the wrong convention. All right. So I'm not going to disagree or agree with someone. All right. So let's just create a trait anyways. So I'm just going to call this HasTags. Okay. And what we want to do is we want to return a public function. And we're going to call this one tags. So if we call on this method right here, what we want to do is we want to just return this tags relation. Now, obviously, we haven't created that method yet. So let's create that method. So public function, and we're obviously going to bring in that tags relation. So basically, if we go into a model, but let's get to that. Let me just create this first. Return this morph2. Okay, but why doesn't it bring it? Okay, so morph2 many. We bring in our tag class, and that's obviously going to be the Taggables, and with timestamps. With timestamps. I think what is useful now is what they have done in the forum is they actually created a couple of extra methods of syncing the tags and removing the tags. So if we go, let's say we go into our models, in our thread model, now what we can do is we can actually use that HasTags. We can actually now bring in that trait that we just created at the top right there. So what this does is actually, so if we want to, we could have actually just created the relationship like this. Let me just add this morph2many in here as well. Morph2many. Okay, so we bring in that relationship, but you could have just brought in the relationship like this itself. All right, just like this. But we're obviously not going to bring it up and bring it in because we already brought it in with the HasTags trait right there. Now, the thing is, what I like about this is because if they create, let's say you've got another method in here. So these methods will basically, you don't have to repeat yourself in every other class that you create. So let's say you have another model called posts. You can just bring in the trait right there instead of actually having to type out all the code for it as well. So that's kind of just very, very nice. Right, so the next thing that we want to do is we just want to sync tags. So this obviously comes from the forum itself. So the repository of new way of doing things, and we add the tags right there. Okay, so this isn't actually new. This is just part of PHP object-oriented programming. So then we just save the tags. And this tags relation, what we want to do is we want to sync the tags. Okay, and the next part is this unset relation. And then we want to do the tags relation. Obviously the method that we just created. Okay. So we got that all done and set up. So basically now with the trait is if we go to the model right there, we can just bring in the use HasTags. Okay, so we're obviously going to work with the thread model in a different lesson, but for now, I just wanted to show you, because as you can see, there's another trait for use as themes that also is another trait that comes. Let's just go to that trait as well. As you can see, another trait created by that comes with Laravel, with the Jetstream installation. As you can see, you can create a whole lot of different methods inside it instead of just creating all these methods in every single class. You can just use a trait to do that. Right, so that is what it's quite useful and handy to use it. Right, so we can bring the HasTags. We'll obviously create more traits as we go along. All right, so for now, let's go a tag model right there. So the next part that I've seen they've done as well is you create kind of individual methods inside it. So in this case, like a public function and ID and the integer. So this is kind of more or less sometimes what I do. So return this ID. So then you just call on the method right there, and you can do whatever you want actually inside here. If you want to uppercase or all that kind of stuff, you can do it in this method right here. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it as it is. All right. So for more on those kind of stuff, you can actually just go to the GitHub page, download the repository. If you're a little bit new, you might just get a little bit lost and confused on some of the things. All right. But I'm just going to use some of the methods and things like that I find it's very useful for someone to know. I'm going to do that. Right. So the next part is we set up our model right there. We got our HasTags right there, our trait that we created. So we can use it any way we want to do. The next part that we're going to do is we need to set up our database migrations for our tags. So obviously, as you remember, we need to create a Taggables migration as well with a tag. So if we go to our database again, let's go database migrations. So as you can see, we got our tags right there. So if we go in there, what we need to do now is we need to, because this is the table what the user, the admin user, will be able to just create new tags. Okay, so there's the name. And the next one is the slug. So string again for the slug. I'm just going to put this unique. Right, so I just wanted to make it unique. Timestamps, obviously add a semicolon. So this is basically our setup for our tags table. So this is the table where the admin create tags, update or delete them. Now we need another table for our polymorphic relationship. If you guys remember from the series that we created, all right, for polymorphic. So we need a Taggables table in order for the relationship. All right, so let's create that Taggables table. All right, so if we open up our terminal right here, so what we want to do is we want to do PHP artisan make, and you're just going to make the migration. Right, and then you can obviously, we will name it create Taggables. Let me just make sure I spell it right. Taggables table, like this. Okay, then you press enter. Did I spell? Oh, yes. As you can see, my spelling is wrong there. Let's just redo that. Migration. I think if someone saw that, they can kind of see that I've typed it wrong there. Okay, so let's create that. As you can see, it created our Taggables table right there. Okay, so let's just close it. So now we've got our Taggables table. Now inside our Taggables table, we need to set up that polymorphic relationship. All right, there are tables for it. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we got our integer, okay, for ID. So let's create a table for the integer. Right, in here, this is going to be the taggable ID. Okay. Now, there's another two tables that we can create. So let's just do it like this: table string, and this is going to be taggable type. The taggable type, if you guys remember, this is going to be the model path. So it's going to be app, model, post, app, model, thread, or whatever. This is going to be that type, like this, with the default. I'm just going to put it to an empty string. And obviously now we need to put a table. And this is going to be the foreign ID. And this is going to be the tag ID. Okay. So the tag ID will reference obviously the tags table right there. That's why it's above, because we're not going to get a foreign key incorrectly formed constraint. So constraint, I'm just going to put the tags table in there. Now, another thing that we could have done, instead of typing all of this out, if you guys remember from the previous lessons, we could have just do table, and then we can just say morphs, okay? And then we can just add taggable, like this, okay? So it will create these fields automatically for us, so we don't need to do that, we can just create that. Just kind of want the foreign key for that to be in front, and then those two right there. Okay, so that's just my preference. Okay, so we got our tags table right there, and we got our taggables. This is for the relationship. This is for the admin to create tags and things like that. Okay, so the next part that we're going to do is we need to migrate our database, and hopefully no errors. So let's just open this up. Okay, so I'm just going to migrate it fresh and just see the database. Okay, so all of that's done. So let's go to our browser. Okay, as you can see, we got our tags table right here. So we got our names like created, add, and updated. The next one is the taggables table right here. So we got our tag ID, taggable type, taggable ID right there. All right, so we got that all set up. Right, so this video is getting a little bit too long. So what are we going to do in the next one? We're just going to do the CRUD operations inside here for our tags. So yes, all right. Thank you guys for watching. And if you do find it useful, or you would like me not to include all of the Laravel.io kind of stuff inside it because it might be too complicated or things like that, please let me know and I will not use it. But I think personally, I put it in because I think if you're going to build large applications, to kind of create reusable code must be a habit. So if you, as a programmer, just to be in a habit to kind of create code that is reusable, that's what interfaces and trades are kind of very, very useful for. All right, and just kind of give you a nice structure also to your coding for your websites or applications or apps or whatever you want to call yours. All right, thank you guys for watching. If you like the video, please give it a like. If you don't like it, please give it a dislike. And yes, it will all depend on the feedback, what we're going to do. But yes, if I get no feedback, I'll just continue as it is. All right, thank you guys, and see you in the next one. Goodbye.